Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Chris here from Esports News Exhortation. However, the flippy on my zone reps, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a quick preview of what to expect going into week 3 of stage 4 of the CDL. This being our back half of the season, our last week of qualifiers this week, and then from here on out, we have nothing but tournaments, that being the stage 4 major in Paris, followed by the Call of Duty Championship in Las Vegas, hosted by Vegas Faze. And then we will have the Esports World Cup, which is also in Paris. So yeah, lock in. Hope you guys enjoyed the intro. Without further ado, I'm going to get into my pick'ems for this week. I think we have some pretty competitive matchups on this slate, given how everything shook out last week. If you guys want a rundown of that, I did a video covering it. Kind of a rough week for your boy. 5 out of uh, 10. So, I mean, not perfect, but also not the worst it could be. So, 50%, I'll take it. Perfectly balanced as all things should be, as Thanos like to say, right? This is our last week of qualifiers, so we have some interesting things going on to close it out. Let's check our standings, see if anything is close or interesting. There's really no bubble teams close to contention for champs at this point. Ravens are 60 points behind the Miami Heretics, who would have to lose out. Ravens would have to win Major 4. A lot of things would have to go very, very wrong for Miami, and it seems quite impossible. So there's nothing really interesting in the back half of the season, like a run like Vegas Legion had a couple years ago, so nothing in the standings to really be looking at. Just wanted to go over that briefly so you guys know I'm not missing anything important. So, speaking of missing something important, I think that honestly, the Riyadh Falcons, it's their season right now. I feel like they've looked really, really, really a lot different than they did even in April, the last time they faced off around Major 2. I'm sorry, Major 3. So, I mean, yeah, I like Vegas here. I'm sorry, Vegas. I like Riyadh here. Vegas has been looking very shaky, especially after losing to Miami Heretics, who I feel is kind of like the V1 of this Riyadh Falcons team, right? The pace that they play at is very much faster than Miami even. So I feel like Riyadh probably take this one. I feel like they're just in a better place than FaZe based on everything that we've seen. I mean, FaZe has had some surprising upsets where they looked like they were out of it and then they beat mates, let's say, but I don't know. I just feel like Riyadh, it's their moment. I feel like they've been playing really well against some of the better teams. Like, let's look at some of their more recent results, right? So, last week, of course, they beat the Ravens in a game 5, very close one. And then in week 1, they played uh, 2 times, right? They played the Heretics, beat them in game 5. And then they also played the Gentlemates and they 3-0'd them. So that's where the roster change came in. Neptune getting replaced after that one. I mean, yeah, Riyadh's been all over the place, but so is FaZe. I mean, you guys know I usually back FaZe. Every time I don't back FaZe, they end up winning. So congrats to FaZe, I guess. But I'm gonna go with the Riyadh Falcons. They've had the hot hand recently, and I think they win this one. I don't necessarily think they beat G2 though, but more on that in a second. Speaking of more on that in a second, I think Webby has been doing a lot to improve this LA Thieves Cloud9 team, but against an LA Thieves team who looks so much more poised and just ready for another championship, I think it's a pretty easy 3-1 for the Thieves. And I say 3-1 only out of respect to the fact that Cloud9 has just been so untrackably improved throughout, this most recent stage in Stage 4. Since adding Webby, it's really hard to track how good they are, especially after they almost won that Game 5 last weekend, right? So I like C9, but I like Thieves more. Speaking of teams I like more, I like the Paris Gentlemates way more to take down the Boston Breach, but I think it's a competitive series. I think that the Boston Breach side is much better than Vancouver Surge at the moment. So I think that they push the Gentlemates a little bit deeper than Surge did, but I don't think that they win the series. So, speaking of people who I don't think win the series, I don't think that C9 take down this new Real-led Miami Heretics team, especially not after beating the Vegas FaZe side. I feel like that momentum will definitely say to Miami, hey, we're a champs team. We are really locked in and we're only getting better at the right moment in time. So I think they take that momentum and I think they go even further in that direction of improvement with a really, really decisive victory over C9 New York and Webby. So, speaking of decisive victories over weaker sides, I think the LA Thieves take a really, really decisive victory over the Vancouver Surge side. I'm going to say a 3-0 here just because Thieves, they've been looking really, really good. And I feel like they're going to win this series in the vetoes. I don't think they're going to play with the Vancouver Surge because these guys do have a lot of slaying potential. And a lot of the maps that they like to play, like Scar, for instance, are maps that LA Thieves like to play. So I feel like this will be kind of a square up, and in a square up, I always favor the LA Thieves in this matchup. Speaking of square ups where I always favor the higher seeded team, I think Optic Texas, I think they make easy work of a Toronto Koi who almost lost to C9 last week. They beat them by a singular round of S&D, right? And Optic Texas, they are coming off of an 0-2 week, losing to the Royal Ravens and, of course, G2 Minnesota, two teams you would expect them to make easy work of. So, speaking of G2 Minnesota and them making easy work of people, they took the LA Thieves to a game 5. I think they currently are slightly a step above a team like the Riyadh Falcons, who are definitely much improved, it has to be said, but they're not necessarily in major winning territory like I think teams like LA Thieves are, and even like a team like G2 is inching towards. So, I'm going to say a 3-2 to end off Saturday just because I can't honestly see it going any other way but a 3-2 for two teams that have been plagued by Game 5, just anxiety all year, right? It has to go 5 between these two. And I think G2 is the better team between these two. So, speaking of teams, I think it's a better team between these two. We have the Vancouver Surge taking on the Miami Heretics. And even though earlier this month the Miami Heretics got swept by this same roster, I think that with more practice and Real not being, fresh off of his visa getting approved, I think it's a much different series. I think it's a much different outcome. And I think it's a 3-1 for Real and the boys. Now, speaking of another 3-1, I think it's a 3-1 for G2 Minnesota over the Toronto Koi. Toronto has looked much improved, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like G2 is significantly better than Toronto at the current moment with no JoeDeceives. Of course, plus Envoy, plus Nasty, minus Estral, minus Mamba. I feel like G2 has just gotten significantly better, and Koi kind of took a step back. Adding Abe and keeping Insight, I mean, I feel like that kind of brings you down, right? It doesn't necessarily level things out. Because Abe is not a replacement for Joe, and Insight was kind of struggling, and he wasn't really the backline that you want against most of these other AR and SMG combos in the CDL at the current moment. So, speaking of backlines that have not been holding up that well, we have Faze Vegas, who has been struggling mightily at the AR position. Draza and aBeZy have just been really having to do too much, and they've been getting overwhelmed because Simp and O4 have not been playing to their usual standards. I understand that Simp has had personal things going on, and that's probably impacting O4 as well. I hope that Faze can really kind of pull things together in this last week of qualifiers, get a strong last week of performances together and kind of make a statement going into champs the last time that we'll see anybody before the tournament, right? This is the week when you really want to say, hey, we've had a couple rough weeks, but this is not the team we are. We can cement that we're a really solid team with a big, big win over a Carolina Royal Ravens team that just beat Optic, and I think FaZe will definitely do that. I think it probably goes 5. This is their second matchup of the week. If things go as I expect against Riyadh, I think FaZe will be coming off of a loss. I think they'll be basically with losers bracket secured at this point going into the major. And I think that with that in mind, they will beat the Carolina Royal Ravens, a team who they have decisively swept on the last 2 seasons, right? In the last 5, they haven't lost one. So I think that's how the week ends. I think that's how the stage ends. And I think that's how the regular season of online matches finally comes to a conclusion. I think we have some pretty orderly outcomes despite the fact we had a lot of game 5s last week. I am forecasting only 2 game 5s on the weekend just because the matchups are not as tight and unpredictable as they were last week. So yeah, if you guys differ, please let me know in the comment section down below. Hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night like I always say. And yeah, I appreciate all the love and support recently. I've not forgotten about my friend in the comments who asked for the class setup video. I've just been very busy with my job and real life things offline. So Haven't gotten around to it, but I will get around to it. Sorry it took me so long. Yeah. And hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, like I always say. If you are new to the channel, be sure to share this with someone who you think would also like this content niche. And yeah, catch you guys with some more highlights tomorrow. Once again, this is Chris Quick Source News Actor Rotation. However, if you know me in the interwebs, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for more Call of Duty, which will just be highlights. And yeah, see you guys there. Peace.